On day 6, we'll be looking around Jerusalem. Jerusalem is a huge town. We've already looked at one of its suburbs, Bethlehem, and we'll be looking at another one, Ein Kerem. But the majority of our time will be spent right around the old city exploring this area. Our hotel, the Olive Tree Hotel, is very centrally located. I'll go exploring early in the morning, seeing the Russian Orthodox Cathedral, the government offices, the Ethiopian Church, and Mesharim before returning. As the sun comes up, I wake up early so I go exploring. I head to the old Russian compound. Mostly what's left now is the cathedral, but it's also several government offices in this area. Let's look around for a few minutes.
Here's a column they were digging out and it broke. And they just left it here.
In the late 1880s, the Ethiopian Church built a round church here with its monks' quarters around the outside of it. My main reason for getting out and exploring today is to look at Mesharim, the ultra-Orthodox Jewish ghetto. Here they're very picky about what clothes you wear, whether you drive on the Sabbath. You need to follow all the Jewish laws. One way of knowing that you're in an Orthodox community is the staggered balconies. You cannot have anything above you during the Festival of Tabernacles. Let's take some time just to walk around and explore. As I arrive back at the hotel, it's time to head out exploring with the group. We'll be heading to the Mount of Olives. Our first stop will be the Chapel of the Ascension. Then we'll head over to Seven Arches Hotel, which has a magnificent view of the old city. And we'll ride camels there. We'll walk down the Mount of Olives to Dominus Flava, to the Garden of Gethsemane, and also to the Church of All Nations. Then we'll get on the bus and drive over and go through the Dung Gate to the Western Wall. Spend some time praying there, then go to the Temple Mount excavations. Then we'll get back on the bus and we head out across the city to go get some lunch. As we head out to the Mount of Olives, we get a magnificent view over the city from the north again. The Chapel of the Ascension is actually a mosque today, a Muslim site. Helena built one here in 380, but it was destroyed, rebuilt and destroyed again, and the present-day structure is a Crusader structure that was built in the 1200s. Let's listen to the reading of the story of the Ascension from Acts chapter 1.
And ascended to heaven. So let me read that passage from Acts chapter 21. And he said, and he gathered them together, he commanded them not to leave Jerusalem, but wait for the Father which had promised, which he said, you heard from me, for John baptized you with water, but you will be baptized with the Holy Spirit not many days from now. And of course that happened just across the way. At Pentecost. So when they had come together, they were asking him, saying, Lord, is it at this time you're restoring the kingdom of Israel? They knew he had risen from the dead and said, okay, is this when your kingdom is going to start? And he said to them, it's not for you to know epochs and times, for the Father has fixed by his own authority, but you shall receive power when the Holy Spirit has come upon you, and you shall be my witnesses both in Jerusalem, right here, and Judea, and Samaria, and even to the remotest parts of the earth. And after he said these things, he was lifted up while they were looking on, and a cloud received him out of their sight. And they were gazing intently into the sky where he was departing. Behold, two men in white clothing stood beside them, and they also said, Men of Galilee, why do you stand looking up to the sky? This Jesus, who has been taken up from you to heaven, will come just in the same way as you watched him go to heaven.
Next, we'll head over to Seven Arches Hotel. Here's where we'll have the best view of the old city, get a picture made, and ride some camels. Let's look around some. This is the place where Jesus was crucified and rose from the dead. And here we see the upper room where he ate his last meal. This is where he was held prisoner that night. And this church marks the place where Stephen was stoned, right outside the Stephen Gate. In the next few days, we'll be going to visit all of these sites in person. This is where David's city was, a very small area. And here are some of the ruins. We will not be able to make it over there. You just can't do everything in the short period we have.
This year in Jerusalem, may the peace of God reign. This year in Jerusalem, we will trust in your name.
This is a view over the Jerusalem Archaeological Park. We'll be there in just a few minutes right after going to the Western Wall. And now it's time to ride a few camels. Let's watch some of them do it.
أنا عندي هواك بكفة وبكفة العالم كله يا عمري لله قلبي ما يبيع خله.
They're leaving. Goodbye.
قلبي ما يبيع خله. أنا عندي هواك بكفة وبكفة العالم كله. يا الفرحك عمري ملون اسمك بالقلب مدون. يا الفرحك عمري ملون اسمك بالقلب مدون. وعن حبك ماني مهون.
I got her.
I hold silver. يلا عم خد تعال. You take the high road and I take the low. الجن هنا. معك سلاح حبيبي شيلك عشان وقت دوم. ماما lean back. You don't lean back. Only sheep. Lean back. I hope silver. Thank you guys and God bless you all. على الفحك يا. Wait, mama, wait. Don't trust you. Don't trust you.
Deborah touch.
وبلحظة صغيرة حين الله أعلم شو يصير.
Here, Deborah.
I hold silver away.
قلب الولهان
Here, Deborah.
يمشي الأشواق يدلها. قلبي ما يبيع خله. قلبي ما يبيع. أنا عندي هواك بكفة
Who's that Arab guy with you, Eva?
Lean back, mommy. You don't lean back, only she. Shut up.
يا غالي حبك عالي وساكن احساسي وبالي. يا غالي حبك عالي وساكن احساسي وبالي. لخلص بحبك وعدي يا روحي وعمري وسعدي، واعطيك الروح واهدي قلبك من قلبي بالله. يا عمري لله قلبي ما يبيع خله.
And now we're going to take a walk down the Mount of Olives. We'll stop at Dominus Flevit for a while with a lecture and look there, and then we'll continue our walk down past the Church of St. Mary Magdalene to the Garden of Gethsemane. This is the route Jesus took on his Palm Sunday ride.
Here goes down to explore the camel rider.
The tradition is that the Kedron Valley is where the resurrection will start, so the Mount of Olives has thousands of graves on them. Some of them date back to centuries ago, others are more new now. Dominus Flevit means the Lord wept. And it's to commemorate the fact that Jesus wept over the city of Jerusalem when he came down on Palm Sunday. There's been a church here since the 300s, and the current church was built in 1953 by Barlusi to represent a teardrop. There's a magnificent view from here. Let's look around some as we listen to Luke chapter 19, verses 41 through 44.
And when he was come near, he beheld the city, and wept over it, saying, If thou hadst known, even thou, at least in this thy day, the things which belong unto thy peace. But now they are hid from thine eyes. For the days shall come upon thee, that thine enemies shall cast a trench about thee, and compass thee round, and keep thee on every side, and shall lay thee even with the ground, and thy children within thee, and they shall not leave in thee one stone upon another.
In excavating here, they discovered first-century tombs with ossuaries in them, bone boxes where bones would have been kept after a person had died and flesh had rotted. This gives us a good view of what a first-century tomb would have looked like. Then we continued down the Mount of Olives. Along the way, we met a man with a donkey and a picture opportunity.
God bless you. God bless you.
We don't have time to go in the Church of St. Mary Magdalene, but it was built in the late 1800s by Tsar Alexander III and is beautiful inside. Here's some pictures from a previous visit. We now come to the Garden of Gethsemane. We'll be allowed in a private garden for a few minutes to pray and meditate. Olive trees are almost impossible to kill. They continue to sprout, as you can see here. This is called a netzer. Also in the garden is a tomb where they would have laid a stone on top, like Lazarus' tomb if we could have gone there. This will give you a good idea of what it would have looked like. And now it's time to head over to the Church of All Nations and its garden with its tremendously old olive trees.
Hours here before his arrest. Gethsemane meaning an old press. You can see it's very old. That tree was placed in 1964. Look how small. 40, 50 years ago. So you can date these trees to 2,000 years ago. The oldest tree is over there in back corner. The olive tree is an everlasting tree that never dies. The modern one was built in 1918 to 1924, depicting for us on the inner part darkness, because this alabaster.
There was a church built here in 380. It was destroyed by an earthquake, and the Crusaders rebuilt that church, but it was destroyed, and the present-day church was built around 1920. Several nations gave the money to build it, and there is a dome for each one of it, thus the name Church of All Nations. The windows are made out of translucent alabaster to give the idea that you're in a garden at night. And the stone in front of the altar is supposed to be the one where he knelt on and prayed. Let's listen to part of the biblical account from John.
And they came to a place which was named Gethsemane. And he taketh with him Peter and James and John, and began to be sore amazed, and to be very heavy. And he went forward a little, and fell on the ground, and prayed, that if it were possible, the hour might pass from him. And he said,
Abba, Father, all things are possible unto thee. Take away this cup from me, nevertheless, not what I will, but what thou wilt.
Across the Kedron Valley we see the Golden Gate, the main eastern entrance to the Temple Mount, and the Dome of the Rock. We'll be up there tomorrow morning. As we head to the Dung Gate, we get some good views back towards the Mount of Olives and all the structures on it. The Dung Gate is one of the more recent gates opened by the Jordanians in 1948 to give access to this area of the city.
Ever the Explorer heads into the old city.
Once we have passed through security, we arrive at the Western Wall. The Western Wall is what is left of the retaining wall that Herod built so he could put his temple here. It was a very small area before 1967 because the Jordanians had control here. But once Israel took back control in 1967, they cleared a wide plaza so more access could be had. The Western Wall is still 30 feet up in the air, as you can see from this model, and next to it is Wilson's Arch. It was about 30 feet tall, so you just barely see a little of it as you go into it for an indoor synagogue. Jewish men and women do not worship together, so there's a women's side and a men's side. I think she's actually, yeah. Prayers are often placed in the wall. The legend is that angels come down each night and collect them and take them to God. The wall was not all made in the same century. The bottom part, large stones, are Herodian. The middle stones, Byzantine. The small ones at the top, Turkish. And you can see what ground level it. Bar mitzvahs are usually held on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and we didn't get to see many. On holidays, thousands of people gather here. Now it's time to head over to the Jerusalem Archaeological Park. We'll be able to see ruins from the time of Jesus, from the Muslim rulers, the Byzantine ruins, and other times of Jesus in the Temple Mount. Let's look around some. Here we can see the large stones that were thrown down by the Romans, comparing to the size of people there. And this is the street in Jesus' day with stores that would have been lining it to the left. You can see the large hole knocked into pavement as the stones came tumbling down. Here we can see an arch-shaped burn mark from a store that was against the wall and burned by the Romans. This is the area of the Umayyad Muslim palaces and the Byzantine homes. Now we're on the main steps that would have led into the temple in Jesus' day. Note how it's a long and short. You had to think to walk up these steps or you'd fall flat. This is a mikveh bath for ritual purification before entering the temple. And looking down there would be where the city of David would have been. Notice here as we leave the broken steps from the Romans they've destroyed and the restored side. We saw lots of young soldiers around, probably in training.
Okay, let's go, guys.
And then we drove by Hale, the Hinnom Valley, Gehenna, the Valley of the Hinnom. This is the place where children were sacrificed. And when Jesus had to think of a place that would be called hell, this is what he used, the garbage dump for the city that burned all the time. Hinnom Valley. It's weird to see windmills in Israel, but this one was used to grind flour. It didn't work very well. And then it was time to eat and do a little shopping.
Okay.
I don't know. The 12 stones. That's supposed to be 12 stones.
It's 12.
Is it? After shopping, we'll head back to the old city. We'll enter the Zion Gate and look at the Armenian Quarter. Go over to the upper room and see the tomb of David. Then we'll leave there and head out to Ein Kerem. There we'll see the Church of John the Baptist before heading back to the hotel for the night. The Zion Gate was the gate that Israel attacked through in 1967, and you can still see the bullet marks where the fighting was. They drive cars through here, but sometimes they don't make it very far. We're going to walk into the Armenian Quarter. Kids are the same everywhere. Teenagers want to show off before the camera, even soldiers. The Armenians were the first to accept Jesus Christ as a nation. They moved to Jerusalem because they were run out of their country. Their main church is the Cathedral of St. James. We don't have time to go there, but here's some pictures from a previous visit. Then it's back out the Zion Gate. We'll walk by Dormition Abbey, one of the Catholic places where Mary is supposed to be buried. We don't have time to stop again, but here's some pictures from a previous visit. We'll next go over to the upper room, a Crusader structure built on the place where Jesus had his Last Supper and also where the Holy Spirit came. It has been a Muslim mosque and is now used by all religions. It's being restored at this time. Let's listen to the story.
And the first day of unleavened bread, when they killed the Passover, his disciples said unto him,
Where wilt thou that we go and prepare that thou mayest eat the Passover?
And he sendeth forth 2 of his disciples, and saith unto them,
Go ye into the city, and there shall meet you a man bearing a pitcher of water. Follow him. And whatsoever he shall go in, say ye to the good man of the house, The Master saith, Where is the guest chamber, where I shall eat the Passover with my disciples? And he will show you a large upper room, furnished and prepared. There make ready for us.
As you can see from this model, the upper part is the upper room, and the lower part is the tomb of David. Here's Deborah teaching a girl how to harass cats. In the tomb of David, it's like any other Jewish place. Women pray on one side and men on the other. This cannot actually be the tomb of David, since he's buried on another mountain, but it's a place we can remember David. Then we'll get back on the bus and drive by the U.S. consulate in West Jerusalem. We walked by the one in East Jerusalem on the way from the hotel to the Old City and arriving in Kerem. This is where Mary came to visit Elizabeth after she found out she was pregnant. We walk up a alley and go to the Church of St. John the Baptist, the traditional place where this happened and where John was born. When Mary came to visit Elizabeth, John the Baptist leaped in Elizabeth's womb. And Mary broke into a song of praise for God that we call the Magnificat. This is written in various languages around the walls. Let's listen to it as the group recites it in English.
Israel, he has visited his people and redeemed them. He has raised them up as a mighty Savior in the house of David, his servant, as he promised by the lips of holy men, those who were prophets of old. A Savior who would free us from the foes and the hands of all who hate us. So his love for our fathers is fulfilled, and his holy covenant remembered. He swore to Abraham our father to grant us that free from fear and saved from the hands of our foes, we might serve him in holiness and justice all the days of our life and in his presence. For as for you, little child, you shall be called the prophet of God, the Most High. You shall go ahead of the Lord to prepare his ways before him, to make known to his people their salvation, through forgiveness of their sins, and the loving kindness of the heart of our God, who visits us like the dawn from on high. He will give light to those in darkness, those who dwell in the shadow of death, and guide us into the way of peace.
Inside in the grotto where John was supposedly born, there is a place to mark that birth. Across on the hill is the Russian Orthodox Church remembering John. There are actually 3 churches in the city remembering him. We don't have time to go to one. Then the group returns to the hotel and some of us set out to explore the old city. In our exploring, we will walk down looking for a pharmacy and eventually end up at Herod's Gate, walk along the wall, and end up at the Damascus Gate and enter there. Jerusalem is actually broken up into 4 quarters: the Muslim quarter, the Christian quarter, the Jewish quarter, and the Armenian quarter. We'll be visiting each as we go through the days, but today we'll be mainly in the Christian quarter before heading back to the hotel. Let's go exploring some. Many bring goods in from the country and try to sell them here to make a little extra money.
There you go.
And there's the drink seller. It's a sweet drink that he sells, carried on his back to those that are wanting to buy it. And the street stands are cooking up some good food. Is that French fries? As we walk along the wall, we see the Spatford Center for Children. The man who wrote "It Is Well With My Soul" came to Jerusalem after his children died and built the Children's Hospital. And then we arrive at the main gate, Damascus Gate. You can see the market is still going here also. Underneath this gate, you can see the ruins of the old gate from Jesus' time. And as you enter through the gate, you see it's as busy as it would have been in Jesus' day as a marketplace. And inside is even more of a market. You can't get vehicles into the old city very well, so they use these three-wheel carts that we'll see many times for carrying items around. They also have narrow gauge tractors that they use for hauling things when they need to. Let's go exploring a little bit. As said before, we'll be walking down the border between the Christian area and the Arab area, but mainly exploring the Christian area. Let's just walk and look.
What? No, I didn't. Huh. Yep. And then see the little streets off to each side.
تعال انا بشيلك هلا. تعال لا. هدو طلع علي. هدو هلا بشيلك بحدك من السكين. طب يلا. واد. تعال بشيلك.
I see that's a typical butcher shop. I actually got a refrigerator on this one. Just like back home, huh?
احلى هلالي بس اسمع
ها
Next, it's time to go off the beaten path, explore some of the alleyways. Then we turn a corner and are back in the busy market just inside the Damascus Gate. As we head out, a traffic jam ensues as they bring in a computer desk and are trying to haul the garbage out with another tractor. And then near the end of the day, it's time to close up shop and head home. And as we head back through the markets, down the street to the hotel, that brings us to the end of day 6.